What's happening, guys? Sam Adams here, and the Game Awards are back yet again. That is right, this year's show is coming up on Thursday, December the 10th, but until then, now is the time to cast your votes. So if you do want to follow along, you can head over to thegameawards.com, go ahead and log in with your account of choice, and you can be ready to go. But this is always a very significant show. Of course, there are always big announcements, kind of showcasing what is coming in the year ahead. Last year we saw the reveal of the Xbox Series X, which no one really expected, and it was a fantastic way to kind of kick off the hype train leading up to the next generation of consoles. But overwhelmingly, these shows are a chance to take a step back and look at the achievement that a year of the gaming industry has brought. And this year is going to be very, very unique because not only did we have the launch of two different consoles from the leading console manufacturers, we also had a coronavirus pandemic that presented unprecedented challenges for developers, and many of those challenges they have overcome in a huge way. I mean, look at how many games have come out over the course of the past 3 weeks, and they're all pretty solid. I do want to say before we dive in fully, I have not played every single one of these games. So, a game like Hades, which is getting incredible reviews from people across the board, is not one that I have been able to play, so I can't really speak to it. Again, this is just my opinion. These are my votes. You are free to your opinion, and I highly encourage you to vote for yourself. But diving into Game of the Year, it recognizes a game that delivers the absolute best experience across all creative and technical fields. The nominees are Doom Eternal, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, Animal Crossing New Horizons, and The Last of Us Part 2. Now for me, personally, The Last of Us Part 2 takes the cake, and that is going to be getting my vote because it is, number one, gorgeous, but number two, I was one that actually enjoyed the narrative. And I know that some people do not, and that's perfectly fine, but I love the team at Naughty Dog. I think they come up with some incredible things. However, I totally understand why anybody would vote for any of these other games, because Animal Crossing New Horizons was a record-breaking success for Nintendo that my friends absolutely adore. Hades is an indie darling that has won hearts around the world. Ghost of Tsushima pushed the boundaries of what Sucker Punch was capable of. Final Fantasy VII Remake rebuilt a classic and re-won the hearts of fans around the world. And finally, Doom Eternal is just a solid, good FPS with plenty of gore, fantastic music, and overall, just a good time. So I totally get your vote, but for me, The Last of Us Part 2, that hit home. Now moving on, Best Game Direction is awarded for outstanding creative vision and innovation in game direction and design. The nominees are Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, Half-Life Alyx, and The Last of Us Part 2. Once again, I'm going to have to give that to The Last of Us Part 2 because of how fantastic it is, and the pacing of the game is just something that was really well done in my opinion. The Best Narrative for outstanding storytelling and narrative development in a game, once again for me, it will go to The Last of Us Part 2, but that was going up against Hades, Ghost of Tsushima, Final Fantasy VII Remake, and 13 Sentinels. So ultimately, again, you can call me a Sony pony if you want, but I don't even have a PS5. I just love The Last of Us Part 2. The Best Art Direction for outstanding creative and or technical achievement in artistic design and animation, the nominees are Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, and The Last of Us Part 2. Art direction is difficult because Ghost of Tsushima, while it does look realistic, takes an incredible leap forward in terms of direction in the art world. Then you have Hades, which just has fantastic art in and of itself, and then Ori and the Will of the Wisps, which has gotten next-gen upgrades on the Xbox Series X and S, and that has elevated how good that game already looks to an entirely new level. However, for me, it's probably going to have to go to Ghost of Tsushima. I mean, truly, art direction in my mind goes hand in hand with game direction itself. And again, as a game that was nominated for the best game direction, I feel like art direction is one that Ghost of Tsushima absolutely dominated in, as well as The Last of Us and the rest of these nominees, but ultimately Ghost of Tsushima takes the cake. Next up we have Best Score and Music for outstanding music inclusive of score, original song, and or licensed soundtrack. You have the nominees of Doom Eternal, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Hades, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, and The Last of Us Part 2. This really comes down to taste, but it also is important to recognize the score and music that complements the game well. So, The Last of Us Part 2 had a fantastic score that really did drive home the emotional portions of the game. Ori also has a very complimentary soundtrack. Hades is a banger from what I've seen. Final Fantasy VII. I don't know that much about this game's music, but I do know that there are plenty of people out there that absolutely adore it. For me, it would go to Doom Eternal, but the soundtrack itself wasn't necessarily mixed properly, and then there was that whole big piece of drama that came out in the spring whenever the game was launched, that essentially the soundtrack wasn't as good or as well EQ'd, I suppose, is the best way to put it, as the 2016 entry in the Doom franchise. So this kind of throws it up in the air. For me, personally, it's still probably going to go to Doom Eternal, but I do hope that they continue to improve those soundtracks as time goes on. Best audio design is incredibly important because it recognizes the best in-game audio and sound design. Doom Eternal is a nominee alongside Half-Life Alyx, Ghost of Tsushima, Resident Evil 3, or The Last of Us Part 2. This is very important in The Last of Us Part 2 because you essentially hear where clickers are, you are able to hear enemies, and you hear your footsteps. It's all very, very, very detailed. The same goes for RE3, Ghost of Tsushima. Half-Life Alyx I have not played, but it is a very good VR game that I imagine audio is very important in. Now, of course, audio design in Doom Eternal is incredibly important as well because you hear crunches, you hear explosions, you hear incredible metal riffs. There's a lot going on in that game as well. For me and my personal experience, it's still going to have to go to The Last of Us Part 2 because it was so incredibly enthralling. I felt like I was in the story, and if you don't have good audio, that's not able to be achieved. I literally had so much immersion from this game that it's still just going to have to go to the team over there at Naughty Dog, of course led by Neil Druckmann. The best performance is awarded to an individual for voice-over acting, motion, and/or performance capture. The nominees are Ashley Johnson as Ellie, Laura Bailey as Abby, Daisuke Tsuji as Jin Sakai, Logan Cunningham as Hades, and Naji Jeter as Miles Morales. I apologize if I mispronounced any of those names. I do the best that I can. For me, absolutely Laura Bailey as Abby. She drove it home in The Last of Us Part 2. Games for Impact is our next category for a thought-provoking game with a pro-social meaning or message. The nominees are If Found, Kentucky Route Zero TV Edition, Spiritfarer, Tell Me Why, or Through the Darkest of Times. I don't really have a good answer for this one because I haven't played any of these, but from what I've heard, Tell Me Why is a solid game. So ultimately, that's the one that I'm going to be going with. And again, if you have any comments or suggestions, please leave them down below. Then we have the best ongoing game, awarded to a game for outstanding development of ongoing content that evolves the player experience over time. The nominees are Apex Legends, Destiny 2, Call of Duty Warzone, Fortnite, or No Man's Sky. This is really difficult because each of these games does something well. No Man's Sky is essentially the tale of how Hello Games just didn't give up. Fortnite is continuing to be a Goliath, however it has had a rocky 2020 with all of the mobile issues that they've had and the feud with Apple essentially. Warzone has had solid support and continual updates that have brought millions of players around the world back time and time again. Destiny 2 is a really mixed bag. Currently, I'm recording this on the day that a new raid is launching, so players are coming back to it, and more people are going to be checking it out. On top of that, the game has also been added to Game Pass, which gives people the chance to dive back in, and Beyond Light is a solid expansion from what I've heard. Then Apex Legends continues to be the same kind of situation as Fortnite, where it is just a battle royale that continually gets new updates and new maps. It's doing pretty well in the grand scheme of things. For me, I'm going to have to go, it's really difficult, probably Warzone, just because the amount that I watch this game shows how much new content has been added and how they continue to improve it over there at Infinity Ward and with Activision overall as the publisher. So that's probably going to be the award winner for me in my book, but I could also see how Destiny 2 would be a good vote as well. No Man's Sky also got the next gen update, and it's bigger than it ever has been before, but ultimately, it's still pretty much foundationally the same game as it was last year this time. Not as it was at launch, but not too much has changed because they've finally gotten it to a good, steady kind of platform to live on. Next up, we have the Best Indie for outstanding creative and technical achievements in a game made outside of the traditional publisher system. The nominees are Carrion, Fall Guys, Ultimate Knockout, Hades, Spelunky 2, and Spiritfarer. I'm going to have to go with Fall Guys because of how big it was for a just kidding, no, it's going to Hades, there's no way. People love this game. I've watched a good bit of it with my friends at work, and it just looks like a fantastic time and one that continually provides value over and over again. Of course, Carrion is a fun game published by Devolver Digital that I got my hands on through Game Pass. Fall Guys was the big little game of the summer, essentially. Spelunky 2 is, of course, one that has been in development for a very long time, but it ultimately is more Spelunky with more items. And then Spiritfarer is one of those nice little heartwarming games, but Hades really brings the heat, and I do love Supergiant. Next up, Best Mobile Game. The nominees are Among Us, Call of Duty Mobile, Genshin Impact, Legends of Runeterra, and Pokemon Cafe Mix. Among Us just took the world by storm, and it's weird because each of these games brings something different to the mobile space, so they're really different. Like, in all honesty, Call of Duty Mobile is an FPS, Among Us is something that you normally play in collaboration with people on PC, Genshin Impact is a game that is available on PS4, PC, and mobile, but it also brings a Breath of the Wild kind of open world experience that is unlike anything else. Legends of Runeterra is the Riot Games title that I'm sure that millions of people are playing, and then Pokemon Cafe Mix I have not played, but it sounds pretty big because, again, you have Pokemon in the name of it, so I know it's getting downloaded. But Among Us had the most impact, I think, and so mobile game is going to go to Among Us for me. Now, the best community support is recognizing a game for outstanding community support, transparency, and responsiveness, inclusive of social media activity and game updates/patches. The nominees are Apex Legends, Destiny 2, Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout, Fortnite, No Man's Sky, or Valorant. Again, this is one that could go a lot of different ways. Fortnite, of course, still incredibly popular. No Man's Sky, the support from the community has been second to none over the years. Valorant has had a lot of ups and downs. Very strong launch, then things started to kind of fall apart. It's still doing well, but it's not the CSGO killer that many people thought that it would be. D2, of course, still has plenty of community support, and although they have their ins and outs, it ultimately still is a very much so loved game because of what's happening now. The raiding community is absolutely flocking to this game, with people across platforms streaming the experience and getting thousands and thousands of people excited about the experience. And finally, of course, Apex Legends is one of those very popular battle royales that people continuously come back to, and it's got the tightest shooting out of many of the BRs that I have played in the past. But ultimately, the best community support is probably going to have to go to Destiny 2 for me. Because Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout is still a very popular game, but it was very much so a flashbang of sorts, where it just blinds the entire social media community for a moment, and then it kind of faded away. Fortnite, much of the same. It was just a longer period of time. It's not quite as big as it was a few years ago. No Man's Sky, again, has been recognized time and time again, but I don't think that it really deserves a huge award for 2020. Valorant, maybe in 2021, and then Apex Legends is still just kind of out there treading water. Destiny 2 is continually bringing people back time and time again, and that deserves some recognition. Then we have Best Virtual Reality or Augmented Reality Experience. Of course, irrespective of platform, the nominees are Dreams, Half-Life Alyx, Marvel's Iron Man VR, Star Wars Squadrons, or The Walking Dead Saints and Sinners. I feel like they really ran out of options to throw The Walking Dead in there. I haven't heard anything about this game. But ultimately, this one comes down to Star Wars Squadrons, Iron Man VR, or Half-Life Alyx, and it's going to have to go to Half-Life Alyx because this is Valve's first game in a very long time, and this is one that moved units. This gave people a reason to play VR, and there aren't too many games that quite honestly do that in a big AAA kind of way. I watched a good bit of it on Twitch, and although that can't replicate the experience of playing it in first person with your headset on, it still looks phenomenal, and that deserves some recognition. Next up, we have innovation and accessibility, recognizing software and or hardware that is pushing the medium forward by adding features, technology, and content to help games be played and enjoyed by an even wider audience. Now, I can't speak to this in full because I don't have any kind of accessibility issue with any game. I'm just a regular dude. So it's better answered by those that are experiencing these games through the perspective of someone who does have potential handicaps. But from what I have heard, The Last of Us Part 2 did a fantastic job with modes that even give the game accessibility for the blind. It is amazing to see what they've done. Now, that's not to say that any of these games haven't done an incredible job, but the most vocal audience that I've heard has been heralding The Last of Us Part 2 as an accessibility masterpiece, so that's going to be getting my vote this year. Then we have the best action game for the best game in the action genre focused primarily on combat. And that is the big driving home factor, isn't it? Focused primarily on combat. You have Doom Eternal, Hades, Half-Life Alyx, Nioh 2, and Streets of Rage 4 as your nominees. For me, the combat in Doom Eternal is phenomenal. It is unlike anything else in the first-person shooter world. It's very similar in a way to Shadow Warrior, but the complexity of Doom Eternal is that you can play it to where you are just playing an FPS, but you will not make it very far. You have to learn how to combine the mechanics of the game together to essentially create this complex dance of death that really does create an experience that is not like 2016's Doom, it's not like Shadow Warrior, it's much deeper than that, and it is so smooth, it is so fantastic, and once you find out your playstyle, you can really do some incredible things. Now that is not to put down Hades or Nioh 2, Streets of Rage 4, or Half-Life Alyx. Again, these are all very different, but for me and my taste, Doom Eternal is going to take the cake home. Or take home the trophy, take the cake, whatever the saying is, you know what I mean. Then the best action/adventure game. Of course, combining combat with traversal and puzzle solving. We have the nominees of Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Ghost of Tsushima, Spider-Man Miles Morales, Ori and the Will of the Wisps, Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, and The Last of Us Part 2. This is difficult because I think action-adventure and I think large open world. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order has an open world, but it's not driving you through it in a way that gives you a lot of exploration. You can return to specific planets, you can go through the game again, but it's not really open world. The Last of Us Part 2, again, I see this as a narrative-driven experience, not really an action-adventure game. So it really comes down to three: Assassin's Creed Valhalla, Ghost of Tsushima, and Marvel's Spider-Man Miles Morales. I have not played Miles Morales. I have heard it's more of the same, although you do have more powers. It is basically 2018 Spider-Man with a new coat of paint, and of course a very shiny coat of paint with ray tracing on the PS5. Ghost of Tsushima and Assassin's Creed Valhalla, that's really what my vote comes down to. I have played probably about 15 hours of Assassin's Creed Valhalla. It is phenomenal so far, but from what I have seen, Ghost of Tsushima is the Assassin's Creed game set in feudal Japan that we've been wanting for over a decade that has finally been fulfilled by Sucker Punch. This is going to be getting my award this year, and again, I have not played it, and Assassin's Creed Valhalla is so good. I'm really enjoying it, even on the Xbox Series X, where a lot of people have said it's not as good as the PS5 version because of essentially a patch that has yet to come out that is going to be fixing some issues that I personally am not experiencing. But Ghost of Tsushima, fantastic looking game, and some really good combat as well. Now moving on, we have the best RPG. This is going to the best game design with rich player character customization and progression, including massively multiplayer experiences. The nominees are Final Fantasy VII Remake, Genshin Impact, Persona 5 Royale, Wasteland 3, or Yakuza Like a Dragon. This one for me is going to have to be, oh man, this is difficult because this is an RPG. Wasteland 3 is the definition of an RPG. Final Fantasy VII Remake is an RPG, but it can also be a lot of different things. Genshin Impact, Persona 5 is of course an RPG. Yakuza Like a Dragon, like an RPG. This is so hard. I haven't played any of these. I want to make that very clear, so you could have a different perspective than me. But I'm going to go with Yakuza Like a Dragon because from what I have seen, it has a lot of elements that shake up the game and the franchise in a way that I think is unique and deserves some recognition. Then we have the best fighting game. This is going to the best game designed primarily around head-to-head combat. The nominees are Granblue Fantasy Versus, Mortal Kombat 11 Ultimate, Street Fighter V Champion Edition, One Punch Man, A Hero Nobody Knows, and Under Night in Birth EXE Late CLR. I don't even know what that is. For me and my taste, out of these nominees, Mortal Kombat 11 Ultimate is the one that is going to have to take home the prize there. But again, I don't know about these nominees. You probably should have contacted a fighting games pro to learn more about which games are doing very well right now. But for me, Mortal Kombat 11 Ultimate, I'm a simple man. I see Rambo and I vote. I know how that looks, but hey, it is what it is. Then the best family game. So, this goes to the best game appropriate for family play, irrespective of genre or platform. The nominees are Animal Crossing New Horizons, Crash Bandicoot 4 It's About Time, Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout, Mario Kart Live Home Circuit, Minecraft Dungeons, or Paper Mario The Origami King. Absolutely Animal Crossing New Horizons, because of the incredible amount of value this game has brought to the world in the midst of a pandemic. It is essentially a second life you can escape to get away from everything that's going on right now. And that's what we needed. Now, that's not to say that all these other games can't do that, but Animal Crossing is a game that people have put hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of hours into, and not every game is able to do that without making players feel bored. And Animal Crossing certainly is able to keep people coming back. Then we have Best Sim and Strategy Game, the best game focused on real-time or turn-based simulation or strategy gameplay, irrespective of platform. You have Crusader Kings 3, Desperados 3, Gears Tactics, Microsoft Flight Simulator, and XCOM Chimera Squad as your nominees. It really comes down to taste for this one. Again, some of these are very sim-heavy, like Crusader Kings 3 is a very sim-heavy game. Gears Tactics, it's kind of like Baby's First Simulator, where it is this strategy game, but it's not quite as harsh as some other games that I have played as well. It's very welcoming for those that might just be fans of Gears that want to try out a tactics game. Then you have Microsoft Flight Simulator, and that one has been in development for so long, and so many people have enjoyed it, and it's bringing so much value to the world overall. It's going to be used for training. I don't think people understand how significant that is. And so the benefit this game brings deserves some recognition in my votes. Now then you have the best sports and racing game, and this is the most frustrating category of the entire year, as it always is for me, because this goes for the best traditional and non-traditional sports and racing game. The nominees are Dirt 5, F1 2020, FIFA 21, NBA 2K21, and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2. Oh my gosh, so Dirt 5 basically plays like MotorStorm. It is unlike anything else in the Dirt franchise, except for Dirt 2 from what I've heard, which I did not play, but it's very arcadey in its approach, which is exactly what it should have been for the launch of a console generation. People aren't really looking for a simulator if they're just picking up a new racing game for their PS5 or their Xbox Series X or S. F1 2020, very simulator heavy, so the opposite of the arcade experience. FIFA 21 and NBA 2K21, basically sports simulators, but they can be lighthearted, they can be very serious, it just depends on how you want to go. Then you have Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, which is an arcade game. This is not a sports game, in my opinion. I mean, sure, the topic may be skateboarding, but that's like saying NFL Blitz is a sports game, because it's not, but it also is. This one frustrates me to no end, because for me, the best sports and racing game is going to be Tony Hawk's Pro Skater 1 and 2, but I feel weird voting for that, because that's like saying I want authentic Mexican food and then going to Taco Bell. Or even worse, going to Jack in the Box and getting one of their tacos. This isn't a sports game, but I'm still going to vote for it because it's Tony Hawk. I love Tony Hawk. It is, I am what I am, and I'm a monster, I know. But the best multiplayer game is going to a title for outstanding online multiplayer gameplay and design, including co-op and massively multiplayer experiences, irrespective of any genre or platform. You have Animal Crossing New Horizons, Among Us, Call of Duty Warzone, Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout, or Valorant. The best multiplayer for me is really difficult because, again, this is very important for the pandemic world because friends can visit each other. I mean, I know that I have friends at work that literally went to each other's islands on a daily basis during our lockdown, which lasted for a couple of months here in the US, and who knows how the winter is going to go. Then you have Among Us, which again has taken the world by storm, beginning to die out a bit now, but still very significant. Warzone is great multiplayer. Then Fall Guys Ultimate Knockout is very special. It's a very special little jelly bean game. And then you have Valorant. For the best multiplayer experience, I'm going to have to go with Warzone because of how many people adore it. Now, for the best overall multiplayer experience, for those that are very hardcore, it could be Valorant. For the novice players, it could be Fall Guys, or Among Us, or Animal Crossing New Horizons. But for me, Warzone is the one that gets the most, by definition, love for multiplayer. Then you have Content Creator of the Year. Now again, this is one that I may not be familiar with overall, but this is for a streamer or content creator who has made an important and positive impact on the community in 2020. You have Alana Pierce, JN Lopez, Nick Merckx, Tim the Tapman, or Valkyrae, and I'm going to go with Alana Pierce because I can't explain how much admiration and respect I have for Alana. She is one of the most down-to-earth people in the gaming industry. Of course, she is moving on. She's now a writer for Sony Santa Monica, so she's technically not considered gaming media or news media anymore, but her content has been a fantastic source of entertainment and of joy for me in 2020, and she deserves to win. I truly, truly hope that she wins. Now, that is not to say that I don't love any of these other people. Nick Merckx and Tim the Tapman I've been watching for years, but Alana really does take the cake for me. Just such a fun personality, such a good person, and such a shining light in the gaming industry for me. Then you have the best debut game, which is going to the best debut game created by an independent studio. You have Carry On, Mortal Shell, Raji and Ancient Epic, Roki, and Phasmophobia. This game, Phasmophobia, has been on Twitch a good bit, but it's not one that I have specifically played myself, but it looks fun. Out of the rest of these, I'm going to have to go with Mortal Shell because it's the closest that we got to an independent Dark Souls game. It is fantastic. It looks very good. I watched Man vs. Game play it earlier in the year. I enjoy the way that it looks, and I do think that there is a huge future for that franchise if they do choose to continue going with it. Now, I have not kept up with the game itself since it launched. I do know it's a bit short, but again, it's kind of like Bright Memory Infinite, where it cost less than a full-priced game. I believe it launched at $30, which gives you a reason to pick it up. You don't have to pay $60, and you get a solid experience out of it. So that's the one that really does win my vote for the year. Now, these next few categories, no idea. Best esports athlete, I don't know any of these people, but I'm going to have to go with probably Call of Duty guy. I guess that's the one that I'm going with. Best esports coach, let's go with this guy's nickname is Rambo. We'll go with that. So there you have that. Then the best esports event, absolutely World. It will always get that vote from me. Of course, other events I'm sure are good as well, but the showmanship, the absolutely incredible production that is the League of Legends 2020 Championship was just something to behold, truly. Then the best esports game goes to the game that has delivered the best overall esports experience to players, inclusive of tournaments, community support, and content updates, irrespective of genre or platform. The nominees are Call of Duty Modern Warfare, Counter-Strike Global Offensive, Fortnite, League of Legends, or Valorant. And again, this comes down to personal choice, but for me, again, this is difficult because in the world of esports, Fortnite has not been as big for 2020. I haven't kept up with it, so I can't speak to it. League of Legends is always monumental, and I know they've added a lot of new classes to this, or new characters, or something big. Valorant has had a huge launch, but then it kind of died down again. Still very popular today, as a free-to-play game, should be. CSGO, still going strong, and Call of Duty Modern Warfare, still going strong. The best esports game judged by tournaments, community support, and content updates. The content updates for Valorant have just not been great. There has not been a lot of content since the game launched. Of course, Riot is a company that is torn in a lot of different directions. So for me, it's probably going to have to go to Modern Warfare, but I really want to vote for Valorant. I just can't. It hasn't given me a reason to as of right now. Now, the best esports host, as always, I gotta vote for Golden Boy. He is my man. He's the best host or commentator of esports events, both in venue and or on broadcast in 2020, irrespective of game or language. You know I gotta vote for Golden Boy. He's been an inspiration for years and years and years. And then the best esports team, yet again, I don't know anything about any of these people, but I've heard of San Francisco Shock, so we'll go with them. And the Overwatch League team over there. But those are my votes for the 2020 Game Awards. I would love to see what you voted for down below, and if you disagree with anything that I said, of course, I'm sure that I will hear it in the comment section down below. But it's always fun, again, like I said, to look back and think about how far we have come in such a short period of time, and how much it's different in 2020, really. Because, again, last year this time, the world was in a different spot. And in 2020, gaming has done us an incredible justice for giving us an escape. It's given us a way to connect with friends. It's given us a place to go and play when we can't normally go out to a bar and meet our friends. We can't normally go out and have a baseball game in the park. It's been very restrictive in 2020. And so to be able to have these different worlds to escape to, whether it be the dark and gritty world of The Last of Us, or to the bright and shiny world of Animal Crossing New Horizons, or to the kick-assness of Doom Eternal, whatever it might be, it's very important to recognize how significant the work these developers do is for ourselves and our society. And so to all of the devs that have made the incredible games this year possible, thank you. But that rounds out today's video from me. If you enjoyed it, drop me a like down below. And of course, if you happen to be new to the channel, hit that subscribe button, check out the Daily Gaming News podcast, or come back next week for another episode of The Drop, which goes over the hottest games coming out on each and every platform. But until next time, you guys have a fantastic one. I'll talk to you soon, and peace.